There was a complete disarray in Aso Rock. We had Akpabioh and Shittimar are currently in a current tussle for NNAMDI KANU's, November 20th final judgment, and it was as if the northern, elite don't want to agree as regards Akpabio finally, sorry, with the Judge Omotosho final judgment come 20th of November. What's your take as regards this clash between the two political leaders in Nigeria?
If you look at the block where the guy that's actually planted Omotosho, look at where the political class, that sent Omotosho, you begin to see, they align with some elements that are, reported to have come from the, northern block. If you look at on Bintanyako too, the same thing. If you look at all these people now, if you look at where Akpabio come from, I think on several occasions, there's this pressure that Akpabio should seek or negotiate, that Mazi Nnamdi Kanu should be released. Even though Akpabio often on the switches off and the switches on at the same time on issue that has to do with IPOB, on issue that has to do with agitation, on issue that has to do with Biafra. He switches, but now that he has found himself in that level, maybe secretly, according to where here, there's total breakdown of relationship, and deep face off between Akpabio now and the presidency. Shittimar, who has risen and started kicking deeply that Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, should not be released, and trying to put out a deep instructions to Omotosho not to seek independence of the judiciary in trying Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. And Akpabio is also making it very clearly to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, of the consequences of silence, of the consequences of conspiracy, of the consequences now that Mazi Nnamdi Kanu's letter, has gotten to the Oval Office and is being treated by 37 US lawmakers. It's not funny. I am telling you, 37 US lawmakers, and that is what Akpabio is trying to point out to them currently now. Look at this issue. Look at where we are, and this is, if you could, continuation of this process is going to bring Nigeria to the abyss. Is going to send Nigeria completely to the gutters, and that is what he is trying to tell them there. But because of this, unfortunately for them, they cannot actually see the beyond their nose. They are not seeing these things coming. They believe, the Northerners imposed Bola Ahmed Tinubu there, and therefore one of the instructions and the reason why he became president today, was to make sure that Mazi Nnamdi Kanu is not being released, even though they know that Obi actually won that election. Erufai and the rest of them, they planted Bola Ahmed Tinubu there. And you can see the handwriting very clearly written that Omotosho could not respond to Mazi Nnamdi Kanu's, continuous questions why he should, open defense without saying his charge sheet. Give me charges. Let me know what the law says about it. Quote the law for me. I will open my defense next year. So you see, let them not ignite. They should be very careful at this point in time, not to ignite crisis with this kind of illegal judgment that people are already kicking against. People are questioning the rationale why James Omotosho should not be rational with his senses and be able to pass judgment based on what the law says and not based on interest. And that is what we are seeing today. The interest of those who don't want Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, released, and those who want Mazi Nnamdi Kanu released, because at the end of the day, they do not know what is going to become the real thing concerning in Nigeria. The weight of Nnamdi Kanu, the might of Nnamdi Kanu, the influence of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, the Africa in Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, the popularity of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, the spread of Biafra, sovereignty and recognition. all is centered. The issue that has to do with genocide, killing of Christians, is all centered on Mazi Nnamdi Kanu now. So Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, is a symbol of so many things that the world is looking at. So if we are projecting something like this, Nigerian government need to be careful, because you do not know, you cannot predict whether that judgment will trigger a certain a forceful removal of Nigeria as an ex-Nigeria. When you say ex-Nigeria, Mazi Nnamdi Kanu trial will lead to ex-Nigeria. You should understand what I'm talking about. Ex-Nigeria. That means, Nigeria will likely automatically, come to an end. And before you know it, you will start referring to them as ex-governor, ex-country, ex-state, ex-Nigeria. That's what I'm talking about. So they need to be careful at this point in time. Yes, but Mazi Nnamdi Kanu is wearing a different shield currently now ahead of November 20 court appearance. There's no two ways about it. What I'm going to say, what I'm telling you now, what Nnamdi Kanu presented in the court on the 20th of November, and I can tell you, you can see the fight is already on in the Abuja currently now. The government is divided because the Trump factor, a lot of them are seeing it as Nnamdi Kanu factor. They are factoring everything. We are seeing that is coming from the international community now about courtesy of Rebecca references to Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. Yes, they are trying to, they have dealt with him. Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, unfortunately, the guy is fighting back ruggedly with everything he would think is reach, and I can see now he has automatically pushed Nigeria to the corners, about to land the final blow, whether Nigeria is going to survive or not. And that is what Akpabioh is trying to get the presidency and attention to, and the northern political powers are already kicking it through the vice president, insisted that this guy has exposed everything that has to do with our plan and our agenda and what we intend to do. Shittimar, you should not allow Omotosho to release him. And you can see now, we are continuing to see more landing of US Marine in Brunei, in where Shittimar came from. Yes, I'm telling you, they are landing there on daily basis, taking positions, and nobody can be able to stop them. The US Marine is landing in Shittimar, in Chibok. They are already taking over. Nobody is going to tell you that, but it is a real thing that the northern, government, hemisphere is currently being militarized by US presence there. And what they are saying is, please, Omotosho, never do this and don't allow this. If you are able to reach Mazi Nnamdi Kanu at this point in time, of course, that will lead to 24 hours. Nigeria can come down and die in 24 hours time. Now that the Americans seems to have taken over the structures of the Northern Caliphate.
But today we saw Nnamdi Kanu finally submit another motion. He said what? He said every charges against him by the court, for terrorism should be what? Trashed. And at the same time, that he cannot be tried. He still maintain that what? That it was illegally rendition from Kenya, and he cannot be tried. And Nnamdi Kanu has filed this just this afternoon today in the Federal High Court.
That's the latest development coming from the IPOB leader himself, and that's the motion need to be respected. And we need to know the charges you are coming up with. We need to know, what are they meant for. Outside that, there's this issue of illegality and illegal rendition of a man from South Africa, from Kenya back to Nigeria, and which we are hearing that the Ruto government have already mobilized against Nigeria in that regard by taking them to the International Court of Justice to prove a point that what actually transpired was, a case of kidnap, and therefore, based on that illegality, Mazi Nnamdi Kanu have no, there's no legal jurisdiction in any court of competence, sanity that have the powers to try Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, and that's what Mazi Nnamdi Kanu is saying, when he filed that motion this morning. I think that's one of the reasons that triggered the crisis we are seeing among political powers, trying to smash their head, hit each other on how they are going to negotiate Mazi Nnamdi Kanu's release, since Mazi Nnamdi Kanu have rejected a political solution to his freedom.